Let's underwrite a 48 unit apartment complex in Bartow, Florida. All right, broker is offering it at $4.4 million. If you take the NOI and divide it by the purchase price, you're going to get your cap rate. It would be an entry cap rate of 6.61%. Property looks great. Average in-place rents are about $9.59 at the moment. And broker is saying pro forma can get up to $11.66. So about a little over $200 a spread, which would hypothetically make this a good deal. I once heard from a wise man, Gabe Bowling. I never heard this rule of thumb before, but he said usually if there's a 2% or a 200 basis point spread on a cap rate, which means from where you're buying it to where you're operating it at, then there's usually good spread on the deal to either flip it or refinance it, pull your cash out and go to the next deal. So if we look at it here, according to the numbers, that checks out with over a 2% spread. Going in cap rate would be 6.61%. And then pro forma would be 9.15%. But let's see just how true that really is. Total income checks out. So far, they only have 2 vacancies, which makes it very strong. Underwriting will never allow for anything over 95% occupancy, so you can just go ahead and write in a 5% vacancy. Loss to lease is about 5.5% from the last T12. Just looking at the P&L, they had a lot of concessions, which are usually advertisement for tenants to get them into the property. Like, for example, if you rent with us for 12 months, 24 months, whatever the lease is, we'll give you your first month free. So concessions bring tenants in the door to get them rented out, to get the units rented out. So 5% is pretty high. It's the highest I've ever seen personally. So that shows me after remodeling certain units, it was a struggle for them to achieve those market rents. Thus, they had to offer concessions to just get someone in the door. Other than that, expenses check out. From when they were operating, it was 33%. At takeover, it'd be 45%, which is standard for a C class, a high C class property like this, maybe even low B class. So from the outside, everything looks good. But for me personally, why this deal didn't pencil is because I didn't agree with pro forma. The broker was using comps from Lakeland, which is over 13, 14 miles away in an entirely different market. All said and done, like I said, I underwrote for 2 vacancies, and then I added a 5% vacancy. And then in order to get those rents as well, a 4 to 5% loss to lease, and I think about 1% for bad debt. So that brought it about to 90. You're only collecting 90% of the marketed rent if you were to achieve those rents. And then from there, 40% expense ratio. So I took that NOI, or I took that effective gross income, multiplied it by 0.6 because 0.4 will be going towards expenses, and I divided it by a 7% cap rate, which got me 3.79 million, I believe. It was a no-go for the verbal offer, but on to the next.